The 11 best British horror movies of the past 5 decades. British cinema blended with the horror genre goes extremely well together. Maybe it is because of the endless folklore or because of the hills, moors, and cobbled streets. The 1958's Dracula was the turning point in British horror cinema, setting an example and giving the audience a glimpse of what was to come. In this video, we will explore the 11 best British horror movies of the past 5 decades. Let's begin, shall we? Number 1. 28 Days Later, 2002. Get up! 28 Days Later is about a highly contagious virus called Rage that breaks out in Britain after an infected chimpanzee is freed from a lab in Cambridge with the help of a group of animal liberation activists. 28 days after the outbreak, the hero of this film, Jim, wakes up alone in a hospital and begins to roam around, hoping to find just one living person who can help him figure out what was happening. Eventually, he is rescued by Selena and Mark, who informs him about everything that has escalated since he was in a coma. This film is about survival, giving the audience a glimpse into what the world would look like in an outbreak this large. Academy Award-winning director Danny Boyle, along with a stellar cast who have shaped British and Irish cinema including Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, Christopher Eccleston, and Brendan Gleeson, came together to create one of the best horror films made in history. This film was shot across several locations in the United Kingdom and its original soundtrack was composed by none other than John Murphy. After receiving critical appreciation and becoming a box office hit, this film went on to win several awards for Best Film, Best Screenplay, and almost the entire cast was nominated in several different categories.
Meet Mela.
Number 2. Kill List, 2011. Before we go forward, please subscribe to us. Your small click will help us in a big way to create more videos. Let's continue. This psychological horror, directed by Ben Wheatley, follows the story of Jay and Gal, who were former soldiers and now are hitmen, with Gal being more laid back, and Jay still suffering the consequences of a previous mission. One fine day, Jay's wife, Shell, decides to organize a dinner party where she invites Gal and his girlfriend, Fiona, and this is where the film begins to form, giving the audience a slight idea of what's to come when Fiona goes to the toilet and carves a symbol into the back of the mirror. At the end of the dinner, it is revealed that they have a big job coming up that could earn Jay and Gal plenty of money. They have 3 targets: the priest, the librarian, and the MP. These 3 victims are all evil in some way or another. Before the priest is shot, he thanks his killer, and a similar incident takes place with the librarian. The film picks its pace up at this point, the level of suspense and intrigue increases with every passing moment, keeping the audience on the edge of their seat. Their final target, however, isn't as simple as the first 2, but do they succeed in completing this task? Kill List is an incredibly unsettling watch, the kind that will make you squirm and flinch at several points, but for anyone who is a fan of horror crime, this should be at the top of your watch list. Number 3. Shaun of the Dead, 2004. Without a doubt, one of the most intriguing genres in cinema is horror comedy. It's like bringing 2 complete opposites together and somehow just making it work. While this genre isn't the easiest to pull off, Shaun of the Dead does it rather effortlessly, making it one of the funniest horror films of all time. This film is about a very unexpected zombie apocalypse and centers around Shaun and his friends. When Shaun's girlfriend, Liz, breaks up with him, he heads to his favorite pub with his friend, Ed, in an attempt to drown his sorrows. When they return home, they find their flatmate Pete complaining about a headache, claiming to have been bitten by a crackhead, because apparently, that isn't the most unusual phenomenon on the streets of London.
Why did they bite you?
I don't know, I didn't stop to ask them!
The next morning, the film goes into full swing when the streets are overrun by zombies. Now Shaun and Ed must embark on a rather comedic quest to save their loved ones.
Get out! Get out!
With an interestingly happy ending, this film makes its way to several horror and comedy film lists, making it an important part of British cinema and culture.
Barbara, that's excellent. Sorry, dear, I was miles away.
It is living proof that 2 completely different genres can successfully coexist together.
Oh.
Number 4. Hellraiser, 1987. Stephen King in an interview once said that he had seen the future of the horror genre, and his name is Clive Barker. Hellraiser, directed by Clive Barker, is based on his 1986 novella, The Hellbound Heart. This film was his directorial debut and was very different from the other horror films that were released in the 1980s. In an era of slasher films, Hellraiser stood out, making it one of the most well-known horror films in history. The story is about Frank Cotton, who decides to purchase a suspicious puzzle box that promises to open a door to otherworldly pleasures, but things go erratic and his body is dismembered in his attic when a hooded figure walks in to retrieve the box, turning the room back to how it once was. However, the film begins when his brother Larry and his wife, Julia, move into the house, and Frank is eventually resurrected as a skinless corpse. Now, Julia takes it upon herself to help Frank get back to his body, and help him escape the Cenobites that were summoned when the box opened. This film is filled with gore, tragedy, romance, thrill, lies, and deception. It is truly packed with anything and everything that one could want in a horror film. Hellraiser marks the beginning of a franchise that will go on to become one of the more important ones in the horror genre. Number 5. The Descent, 2005. A group of 6 people who are adventurous and thrill-seekers decide to get together and hike up to a mountain cave. At the start of the film, we learn that one of the people, Sarah, had lost her husband and daughter in a car accident, and this adventure now takes place exactly a year from then. While in the cave, they continue moving towards a narrow passage, and things go haywire when it collapses behind them, trapping them in the cave, and Juno takes responsibility for it. Now, if The Descent was anything like the film 127 Hours, it would have gone an entirely different route, but this horror film directed by Neil Marshall takes an entirely different turn. This group faces pale humanoid creatures called crawlers, who instantly attack and kill Holly by biting through her neck, and sending alarm bells throughout the group. This created an atmosphere of tension and fear, along with a claustrophobic environment in the film, as well outside, making the audience live through this cinematic experience. The group continues to face several obstacles. While secrets are revealed, things escalate quicker than they should, but who will survive? One must go into this film with an open mind and know as little about it as possible. Number 6. The Omen, 1976. It was the year 1966. In the city of Rome, an American diplomat Robert Thorne and his wife Catherine welcome a baby boy into the world. Unfortunately, the baby is stillborn, and when Robert is presented with an opportunity to adopt another baby boy, he does so without telling his wife the truth about their newborn's passing. They name the baby Damien, and around the time of his 5th birthday, the family moves to England when Robert is appointed ambassador to the United Kingdom. It's at this point of the film that strange, disturbing things begin to happen to this family. A priest later informs Robert that Damien is not the innocent child he appears to be, claiming that Damien is the Antichrist. At first, Robert believes Father Brennan to be insane, but as the signs become clearer, Robert sees the danger he and Catherine are in. Is the true son of evil living under the same roof as them? And will it be too late for them to save themselves? A little trivia that always amuses fans is about the child actor playing the role of Damien, Harvey Stevens, who was cast for this role majorly based on how he attacked Richard Donner during the auditions. So, if you're a fan of the supernatural and want to give yourself nightmares, The Omen should be at the top of your watch list. Number 7. Dead Man's Shoes, 2004. When Richard returns home from his time in the British Army, he's not done fighting just yet. His younger brother, Anthony, is a developmentally disabled man who has been harassed and abused by a group of drug dealers in their hometown, and Richard intends to make them pay for what they've done. This film is about revenge, and despite being a low-budget film, it portrays nothing but excellence with an extremely dark and challenging theme. The film progresses as Richard manages to kill the members of the group, and after the first murder, Richard uses the blood of the deceased to write, "One down," on the wall, showing the audience just how dark this film intends to be. This isn't the kind of film that can be everyone's cup of tea, as Richard brutally murders all the members, until the last one remains, Mark. Things only get more disturbing from there, and there is nothing that can and will stop Richard. Paddy Considine, who plays the role of Richard religiously, delivering a manic performance, received the praise that he deserved for this role, along with 4 nominations and 2 wins. Overall, this film set out to be a psychological thriller and delivered every step of the way, without any hiccups or setbacks. Number 8. The Wicker Man, 1973. In this 1973 British folk horror film, Sergeant Neil Howie flies to Summerisle to follow up on an anonymous letter addressed to him about a 12-year-old girl who has been missing for a long time, along with a photograph. However, when Howie reaches Summerisle and talks to the locals, none of them recognize the girl in the photo and claim that no one by the name of Rowan lives there, but he is convinced that they're hiding something from him. This film is a true cult film with certain cult practices that are revealed as the narrative moves forward. They have rituals surrounding procreation that don't have to be within the bounds of marriage, and parade sex in public and private, going against everything that Howie believes in and stands for. This part of the plot is one of the reasons this film has been a masterpiece in British cinema and continues to be one, 20 years later. The plot, however, progresses, and Howie is convinced that Rowan was murdered or sacrificed as a part of one of the rituals, but does he figure this mystery out? Will he find Rowan or the truth about her missing? With this suspense, this film manages to capture the audience's attention from start to finish, without relying on gimmicks or jump scares, making it another classic horror film. Number 9. Dog Soldiers, 2002. Neil Marshall's directorial debut has been known to be one of the most action-packed werewolf movies to have ever existed in cinema. Dog Soldiers, which was released in 2002, was the film that launched Marshall's career, making its mark, and while there were rumors about a sequel, it never really happened. This film follows a squad of 6 British soldiers who are currently on a training mission in the Highlands of Scotland and are meant to carry out a mission against a special Air Force unit. However, on their pursuit, they find the remains of the members of the unit, in a horrifying manner that forces the troop to retreat from the area. While retreating, one of the members is impaled by a branch, the sergeant is attacked, and only 5 soldiers remain. It is soon revealed to the audience that the attackers are werewolves, which sets the pace and theme of this film, making it more exciting with a certain element of fantasy now attached to it. While there are several films in world cinema that tackle the concept of werewolves, this one tops with the amount of gore, action, and an unexpected touch of humor. Dog Soldiers is a film about soldiers versus werewolves. How many of them will survive? This film was rightfully nominated for several accolades across the globe for its story, cast, and director. Number 10. Don't Look Now, 1973. After the untimely and tragic death of their daughter, John and Laura Baxter travel to Venice, where John has been commissioned to restore an ancient church. At a restaurant, Laura encounters 2 elderly sisters, Heather and Wendy, where Heather claims to be a blind psychic and decides to tell Wendy that she can see Baxter's daughter. Laura is shaken up by this, but it eventually brings a pleasant change in her demeanor when she later narrates this incident to John. This is when the infamous and rather controversial sex scene takes place, and despite the uproar around it, it was an important scene that symbolized redemptive reconnection between the couple after the death of their daughter. As the narrative moves forward, Laura decides to meet Heather and Wendy for a séance, where her dead daughter warns her about the potential danger, which prompts Laura to confide in John, telling him that they should leave Venice, which he disagrees to. For reasons, Laura returns to England, and that's when the film picks up its pace and stranger things begin to happen. While the film is almost entirely made up of John and a little figure in a red coat, it all comes down to whether or not John's life is truly in danger. As a special mention, this film was known for its cinematography, for which it also won a BAFTA, and was nominated for several other accolades. Number 11. Ghostwatch, 1992. This reality horror documentary was first broadcast on BBC One on Halloween night in 1992. This film was a part of BBC's Screen One series and featured its reporters performing a live, on-air investigation of a house in Greater London, which was supposedly meant to be haunted, making it the most haunted house in Britain. After talking to the neighbors living around there, they discover the existence of a ghost named Pipes, who was later revealed as a psychologically disturbed man called Raymond Tunstall from the 19th century. The reporters and crew are also joined by a paranormal expert called Dr. Lynn Pascoe, who is guiding them through the spirits and the events taking place in the house. Despite being called a spoof documentary and reality horror, this television film was purely fictional. The several viewers who called in with their experiences were first directed to a number that told them this was entirely fictional. Despite being fictional, the realism of this television film was incredibly frightening and scared an entire generation of viewers. Ghostwatch didn't just impact British horror, but horror as a genre, paving the way for films like The Blair Witch Project in 1999 and the ever-so-popular Paranormal Activity in 2007. This film poses a cultural phenomenon even today and will continue to do so in the future, making its mark in cinema.
Sarah?
That was all in this video. Do hang around for more awesome content on everything that's movies, comics, and TV.